Hello, ladies and gentlemen. My name's Ostego, aka Grayson Sortek, and welcome to the first part in a three-part series on how to get classic MechWarrior games to run with current operating systems and hardware. And by current, I mean like Windows 10, 64-bit in the year 2019, running something like an NVIDIA GTX 1080 or something like that. Alright, first and foremost, you're going to need to download some tools. If you already have something like WinRAR or something else that can extract a zip file, then good for you. If not, then I recommend 7-zip. I'll be putting links in the description for all of the software that I talk about, by the way. The next thing that we're going to need is Power ISO 5.5. I'm going to leave a link in the description there as well. Then you're going to want to download, this isn't an installation file, but you're going to want to download MechVM. And just go ahead and download the very top one right here, the executable. And before we really jump into it, for each of these videos, I'm going to be citing the most useful resources I've been able to find in regards to getting these things to run. A, because it's just the ethical thing to do to cite the people who basically helped get me here, whether they know it or not. And B, it's to also, if you run into any issues, you might be able to reference these sources and figure it out for yourselves, or send me a message and maybe we'll be able to figure it out together. And I also will be linking this right here. It is an article created by LordNova 2, who basically describes exactly how to change the input commands for MechWarrior 2. The files that we're going to be interacting with come default with settings that are based on using only the keyboard to run MechWarrior 2. There's no mouse support right out of the box, which is kind of difficult if you're trying to do a mech game. I remember this being kind of a big issue for me when I was a kid, and it just kind of makes it a little bit more difficult. And honestly, I'm kind of spoiled by modern games like MWO. Even MechWarrior 3 and MechWarrior 4 had mouse support. MechWarrior 3 actually defaults to the keyboard, but you can enable the mouse. So I've actually created my own files that I'll be linking to in the description for the input.map and the gamekey.map. I'm going to be linking the file that is going to be hosted on Critical Rocket's Discord. Big shout out to CR. Thank you very much for hosting those. If you don't feel like going through this article and figuring out how to program in your own controls, because the thing about DOS games is that they're very finicky if you try to mess with them. So if you get just the syntax wrong on one line, anytime you try to launch the game, you might be able to get through the menus. But if you try to launch the game itself, it's going to crash, and it's going to give you an error message for maybe, I want to say, a second, and then it just vanishes. So have your camera or the camera on your phone ready or something like that to take some pictures of it to figure out where the error is so that you can correct it. If you don't feel like doing all of that, just download the files that I'm linking to, and we'll go over how to put that into the game files so that you have something that's a little bit more modern. I'm also going to be linking essentially keyboard and mouse layouts, kind of like I think MechWarrior 2, if not MechWarrior 2, MechWarrior 3 definitely did have it. It's kind of following the same guidelines of here's the input mapping, and here's a quick reference sheet or something like that. I'm going to be linking those as well. Okay, so now with all that out of the way, we're also going to be downloading our main files from MyAbandonware.com. So go to MyAbandonware.com or click on the link in the description and download the pre-installed ISO version. You're going to be doing this, ignore everything else. Ignore 3DFX, eventually one of these shows Titanium Edition. Ignore all of that. Ignore the RIP version. Just download the pre-installed ISO version. You're going to do the exact same thing for Ghost Bear's Legacy and for MechWarrior 2 Mercenaries. Okay, now that you have everything that you need downloaded, I highly, highly recommend that you start putting these things into separate folders. You can see that I've got my MechWarriors in here. I've got my tools folder. I've got a shortcuts folder. That'll become a little bit more important later on with MechWarrior 3 and MechWarrior 4. But for now, with MechWarrior 2, I've got everything separated out into separate folders. And you'll see eventually, if you were to just dump all of these files and folders into one big folder, it's going to get really messy and really complicated. For right now, you'll have these zip files right here. What you're going to want to do after you install 7-zip, all you have to do is right-click on this, go to 7-zip, and extract to whatever the file name is. So you're going to do the exact same thing here, extract to whatever the file name is. And you're going to do that for all of these. You can see I've already moved these to their own folder, and I've kept the zips in their own folder. I do that just because zips are already compressed, and I don't want to get rid of them just in case I muck something up. And you can also see that I already have the files that you'll have downloaded from Discord right here in my main MechWarrior 2 folder. And before we go any further, I have to mention that you're going to want to move this folder to wherever its permanent home is going to be. So don't put all this in your downloads folder, extract everything, and then do the rest of this video, because you'll never be able to move this folder out of your downloads folder and get the game to work correctly. And that's because DOS programs are just a little bit more finicky. Like if you were to create in a modern folder a shortcut to an executable or something like that and then move the folder, you'll see that the target path for the executable actually, for the shortcut, changes. That's not so here. So what I ended up doing is I copied this folder. All I did was copy it, and I put it in the MicroPros folder. I had already installed MechWarrior 3 at this point, and when I started installing MechWarrior 4 and I looked at MechWarrior 2, I went, okay, I don't want this to be all over my computer. I'm just going to put it in the MicroPros folder. So that's why it's in there. I know MicroPros didn't develop every MechWarrior game. I know that. This is just for my sanity and keeping everything organized. So I moved the MechVM here and I renamed it MechWarrior 2. You'll see here's all the MechVM files, and you should see that this games folder is empty. Okay, now that we've done that, and I've made sure to let you guys know to not put all this into your downloads folder, let's start working on the tools. So, what you need to do is install Power ISO 5.5, and I'm going to begin this with saying that it's going to require a restart. So make sure that you favorite or you save this video somehow so that you can come back to it after the restart. Alright, and I see that my dogs have made a cameo in this video. Excellent. Okay, so we're just going to double click it. It's going to open just like any other app. I agree. I'm going to change the destination folder to my E drive just because it's bigger. Next. Okay, now that it's installed, I'm going to hit next, and I'm actually not going to click on ISO. I'm going to click on .bin and .q. The reason for this is that Windows, I believe 8 and 10, have their own software that can mount ISO files, and I don't want to mess with that. I just wanted to be able to mount bin and q files. And the reason for that is that even though we downloaded a file from MyAbandonware.com that said pre-installed ISO, there's no actual ISO file. Those are actually .bin and .q files. So go ahead and select those. Make sure that you have auto mount on boot up, and make sure that you have one virtual drive. I'm not going to check for updates because I don't want it to ask me for some kind of registration or something like that. And I'm going to make sure to integrate the Power ISO into Shell. So with all of that done, I'm going to close. It's going to come up with this whatever. You can go ahead and just exit that. And now we need to restart our machines. So I'll see you back here shortly. Okay, and welcome back. You should have Power ISO installed now. To tell, once you open File Explorer, you should see a little golden disk with a virtual drive. If you don't see that, try exiting your Explorer and then going back in. It takes Power ISO a little bit to start up for some reason, or check your taskbar and you should see it right here, Power ISO Virtual Drive Manager. Now, you might be able to go into your MechWarrior 2 folder, go here, Mech2, and find the file that's the largest file and right-click it and have Power ISO options here. If you don't have that, because I've run into... I've done this recording a few times just for practice, and sometimes it shows up there, sometimes it doesn't. Right now it's not, so I'm going to go ahead and right-click this, and I'm going to mount an image to drive D, my virtual drive. And no, I don't need all that stuff. I just need to go to old games, MechWarrior, MechWarrior 2, 31st Century Combat, and pick the big one. Okay, and now it should be mounted into D drive, and you can see it says Mech2 16B. Good! Excellent! Now I'm going to go over to my MechVM, which I've renamed MechWarrior 2, just to make sure there's no confusion. I'm going to open the MechVM application. Now you'll see that there are multiple tabs up here. You shouldn't see anything in the Mech Lab right now. Play game should be totally empty. So we're going to go to Install plus Import. And you can already see that it says Install MW2 31st Century Combat from D drive. So we're going to click on Install From. It's going to confirm D drive. Click Install. It's going to tell us to please select location as CD image file. We're going to say OK. And it should let us click on, I don't want Ghost Bear's Legacy. Should let us click on wherever the file path is for MechWarrior, MechWarrior 2. Click on this. Go to the largest file, open, and now it should be importing it. Alright, installation complete. 16 mechs imported. If I go to the Mech Lab, hey, look at that. This is actually kind of neat because you can right click and you can rotate the models around. They're not textured in here. You'll actually see the textured versions for MechWarrior 2 Mercenaries. Anyway, let's go ahead and exit the Mech Lab, hit play game, and yep, it shows me that there are, there's actually multiple. It's kind of funny. I found that it's best to launch just from this 31st Century DOSBox. If I try to run from the MechVM shell itself, it's going to generate a little image in here that you can't really interact with. Just for the sake of showing you guys, I'm going to go ahead and run this just because I know where the exit is within the UI. So I'm going to click on that and start campaign. And you can see that it's taking me straight to the Jade Falcon briefing room. If I were to click on that, it'd take me to cadet training. If I were to click on this, it'd go into the career. But I'm going to go ahead and click up here. Yeah, and the exit's not working. So we're just going to have to exit MechVM. So my recommendation is to not launch it from either of these options. Just click on this, open this, and you'll be able to launch there. Alright, let's install the rest of it. So I'm going to go ahead and exit MechVM. I'm going to go ahead and go back to my PowerShell, and I am going to go ahead and unmount all drives. There we go. Perfect. Okay. Now we're going to go to Ghost Bear's Legacy. We're going to make sure that, yes, we do have a bin file. Excellent. Okay. We're going to go ahead and mount an image. Go to our Ghost Bear's Legacy. Make sure we pick the file that has the most amount, or the biggest size. There we go. It is mounted. Excellent. Open up MechVM. Install import. Now it knows, hey, I'm installing MechWarrior 2 Ghost Bear's Legacy from the D drive. Yep, I want to do that. It's going to ask me to give it an image. So we're going to do that right now. Here we go. Alright, installation complete. Now if I go to play game, yep, I definitely do have Ghost Bear's Legacy. Alright, let's go ahead and exit MechVM again, just to make sure. You're going to right-click the PowerShell, and we're going to unmount all drives. Now we are going to go to our MechWarrior 2 folder, Mercenaries, and we're going to make sure, yep, we do have a bin file right there. So we are going to go to our PowerShell, and we're going to mount that to the drive. There we go. We're going to go ahead and launch MechVM again, install import, and now it knows, hey, install MechWarrior 2 Mercenaries from the D drive. Install, yes, confirm, install. Okay, we're going to select that CD image, MechWarriors. Here's Mercenaries. Again, make sure that you are selecting the largest file, not the smallest one, because that won't give you any data, and it will install it improperly. Go ahead and open that. Installation complete, 36 mechs imported. So as you can see, I have got a bunch of frickin' mechs in here. And you can tell what's in Mercenaries because you've got the Flashman, for example, has a texture on it. Hellbringer is, or the Loki, is not textured, etc., etc. Here's the Hunchback. So, excellent. It seems as though it worked. Play a game. If I go here, I should see Mercenaries, DOS. Okay, so you should have these installed now. Before we get into them, we're going to go ahead and fix our settings to make sure that we can actually play the games. So go ahead and go to wherever you downloaded the Sortec game key and input files, and make sure you have this open right here. This is the MechVM folder. And under games, you should see that we now have a MechWarrior 2, Ghost Bear's Legacy, and Merc folder right here. So I'm going to go to MechWarrior 2. I'm going to find, there it is, gamekey.map and input.map. I'm going to go ahead and rename this 2-old. Rename that -old. There we go. I'm going to go ahead and copy the Sortec ones. I'm going to rename these so that they match what the original ones did. There we go. Alright. Perfect. And yes, you do have to do this for Ghost Bear's Legacy and for Mercenaries if you want the more modern controls to work with those as well. But just for the purposes of this video, I'm just showing MechWarrior 2. Alright, so play game, MechWarrior 2 31st Century Combat. Let's start the campaign.
This is HQ to any available units. We have mechs down at Nav Gamma. Bravo Cadet reports 4 summoners on site. Bandits are hostile. Repeat, bandits are hostile. HQ, this is Alpha Assault.
Okay, so what you guys probably have noticed is that on your screens anyway, it looks like, you know, wait a minute, what the hell's going on? This isn't in full screen. This is some little small portion of your screen. Well, on my end, for my display, it's actually full screen. I think what the developers for MechVM did is instead of trying to take an old DOS game and expand it to 16:9 resolution or whatever your resolution is for your current monitor, instead of trying to do that, because it's very, very difficult to do. In fact, MechWarrior 2 has a history of, there's different versions of it for different pieces of hardware. So if that gives you any indication of how difficult it is, there's actually different versions of the game just to match the graphics. So instead of trying to fix that, it seems as though what the developer did is, this is pretty ingenious, they instead zoomed your display in on what you're seeing on your screen right now. So you guys see this little small box, I see it filling up my entire TV. So we're going to go ahead and
Sibco identity.
register our Sibco. Now, here's something funny. It says Grayson. For whatever reason, the Z and the Y key are, I don't know. I have no idea why, but they're mixed up. So I'm going to go ahead and click that, put in my pilot name, hit enter, accept. I'm going to go ahead and go to cadet training. And I'm going to go ahead and go straight to the trial because I've already done this when I was testing everything out.
This is a call to trial. You are to engage in a trial of position for the rank of MechWarrior. Okay, Cadet.
Alright, mouse is working.
Nav Alpha. This time you are on your own. You are to engage a MechWarrior in the field. If you are victorious, so be
My
it.
controls are
The
working.
plan will be bettered by having a new, competent MechWarrior. If you are not, the death of the incompetent is the death of a feeble progeny and a testament to our glorious method.
External camera engaged.
Yep, all of that's working. So yeah, I mean it's it might not be perfect for what you are used to. I invite you to definitely make backup copies of the files that I provided with the input and the game key, and feel free to play around with it and check out that awesome article that I have linked in the description and mentioned earlier, because this feels pretty good for me, especially considering this is an older DOS game that originally played on keyboard. Although I know Devin would argue, for example, that it was designed to function with a joystick. If anybody figures out controls for that, joystick controls, how to program it in there, I invite you to share it with Critical Rocket's Discord. I would love to give that a try, and I know that a lot of others would love to give it a try as well. But as you can see, it is functioning, and yes, I somehow did hit myself with missiles.
External camera engaged.
I guess I just have to stand still so that I don't accidentally... Oh, I guess I swung my torso into it. That's what I did. Neat.
External
Let's see if we can replicate
engaged.
that. Huh. No, everything was fine. Great. Wonderful. Anyway, so as you can see, MechWarrior 2 is working with modern controls. I know that you guys don't see this, but on my end, everything is running in 16:9. The UI is set correctly. Things are not stretched too badly in terms of the graphics on my end. It actually looks pretty nice. See for yourselves.
Self-destruct sequence initiated. Mission failed.
And if that exit gives you any indication, yeah, these older games are kind of hardcore, and they did try to make you feel bad for leaving. It added immersion. It was immersive to flee and end up self-destructing. Anyway, feel free to check that out. If there's any issues or you guys have any better workarounds or improvements, etc., please feel free to let me know in the comments. Thanks for watching. Until next time!